their hands, sneeze into their elbows, and to stay at home if they got flu-like symptoms. But the virus kept spreading, and in May, Canada got its first serious case. Here's the CBC's Joanna Romeliotis.
She wasn't in Mexico and had no contact with anyone who was. That's the only clear information about a little girl in intensive care who was Canada's latest swine flu statistic.
It's the first time, let's say, that we have a case that requires hospitalization. Like all the other cases we've had so far, which has been the pattern pretty much around the world, has been, outside of Mexico, has been that the cases are mild and are recovering uneventfully.
Officials wouldn't say how old the child is or how she might have come in contact with the virus.
We are following up on all the contacts and ensuring that we track down anybody else who might have picked up the infection.
No one has been hospitalized.
The news that Canada could be seeing its first case of severe swine flu came as provinces across the country announced more confirmed cases, bringing the Canadian total to 140. Federal health officials say the Alberta girl is in stable condition, but that her case could signal a dangerous shift.
Up until now, we have been reporting that all confirmed cases in Canada have been relatively mild and that all have made a full recovery. However, the news of this first, more severe case, although disconcerting, is not surprising.
Disconcerting because until now, all the confirmed cases of swine flu in Canada had been connected to travel to Mexico. The suggestion and the fear that the virus could move further and more virulently had always been there. Dr. Don Lowe runs Ontario's public health laboratory. We caught up with him as he was learning about the Alberta case.
It could be at that flat part of the curve, which may then accelerate. And the question is this the beginning? Is this something that we're going to see now? Community cases suggesting that we're seeing spread within the community.
Which is exactly what happened. By early June, every province in Canada except Newfoundland had reported cases. There were nearly 1,800 cases of H1N1, thousands more suspected ones, and 3 deaths.
It was quite bad.
This 27-year-old man was in perfect health when he got infected and spent 3 days in intensive care.
It was like a complete shutdown. It was like every part of my body was becoming more difficult. It was difficult to stand, it was difficult to breathe.
Most of those who got really sick or died had other health problems, but it was clear that also included such common things as obesity, mild asthma, and manageable diabetes. Then on June 11th, the World Health Organization made it official. It declared the swine flu a level 6 outbreak, the highest alert there is. Here again is the CBC's Joanna Romeliotis.
It had already spread so far, so fast. This was inevitable.
I have therefore decided to raise the level of influenza pandemic alert from phase 5 to phase 6.
Level 6, a pandemic. That means the world is officially in what it's been in for weeks, a global flu outbreak that could last months.
You're talking about a marathon. You're not talking about a sprint.
Countries like Canada have been adjusting for weeks. An estimated 160,000 Canadians may get sick enough with swine flu to require hospitalization. Up to 33,000 could die. Everything from where to hold emergency meetings to where to keep ventilators is part of a pandemic plan ready to unfold.
We will continue to prepare. We'll continue to be ready.
The main message from Ontario's pandemic watchdog agency today: don't panic, but be prepared.
There's a very small chance you might get really sick from this virus, but it's a good chance you're going to get infected with it. And so, how is your life going to deal with that? If you've got young kids who get sick, if you've got elderly parents who get sick.
Drug makers have already begun the vaccine production process by growing the virus in eggs. If mass vaccination is called for, every Canadian will get one, especially in the fall when it's expected swine flu cases will surge.
If all goes well, it looks like we will actually be able to start immunizing in late October and potentially have everybody immunized who wishes to be immunized before Christmas.
Public health officials say viruses are unpredictable, and the fear with this one is it could mutate as the pandemic spreads. That's why a vaccine is so critical. Right now, it's the best hope for stopping swine flu in its tracks.
When that vaccine becomes available, several groups of Canadians will be among the first to be urged to take it. Among them, Canada's Native people. Infection rates in some Aboriginal communities have been many times higher than the Canadian average. Pregnant women are another very vulnerable group. A U.S. study found they were 4 times more likely to be hospitalized with the virus and more likely to die.
Pregnant women, because of the risk, will be one of the groups that we would hope to immunize early on.
And then there is the biggest group of vulnerable Canadians, young people.
The picture emerged early on. One after another, many of the faces of swine flu seemed to have something in common. They were young, previously healthy. Now new evidence confirms, when it comes to a clear risk group, this is it. 2 new studies published today looked at the age distribution of swine flu cases admitted to hospital in Mexico in the early days of the outbreak. The vast majority of deaths and severe disease documented were among young adults between the ages of 20 and 40.
There seems to be a distribution shift to those people who are a bit younger than normally who are affected by influenza.
A disturbing characteristic that confirms what experts have been tracking for weeks.
These data are helpful in terms of who to target for vaccine. These data are helpful in terms of who to target for early antiviral therapy, which is another option for prevention. These data are important in terms of recognizing who's likely to have influenza when people get admitted to the hospital.
In Canada, the average age of swine flu cases has been between 20 and 40 years old, and the majority of younger people hospitalized have had no underlying conditions. Why they're at risk is unclear. The main theory, younger, healthier people's systems go into overdrive to fight the virus, leaving them vulnerable.
This is your workforce. These are people who have young kids.
And they pose a unique public health challenge.
I mean, the real challenge with this particular group is these are the so-called invincible people. These are the people who don't believe they ever get sick, typically don't get flu shots.
A swine flu vaccine is targeted to roll out in Canada starting in October. It will be separate from the regular flu shot. And already public health officials are saying younger, healthier people should seriously consider lining up for both of them. Joanna Rumeliotis, CBC News, Toronto.
By mid-August, the manufacturer of Canada's swine flu vaccine reported that it had begun human testing. It said it hoped to get the first doses out in September and to have filled most orders by the end of the year. In the meantime, preparations continue. Here again is the CBC's Joanna Rumeliotis.
From your kid's school to your place of work to how you get there, swine flu will impact your daily life even if you don't get sick. And it's why when it comes to a pandemic, it's all about the plan, or at the very least, having one.
I'm not preparing at all for the swine flu. Washing hands all the time. I'm telling my kids all the time to wash their hands.
After weeks of reassurance that the virus, while spreading, is relatively mild, public health experts are now gearing up for what could be a bigger and more severe onslaught of swine flu in the fall, and hoping everything will go according to plan.
But the devil's in the details.
Only glitch? There can be no perfect plan.
Every piece of advice that we've put out in Ontario has said, subject to change. As we learn more, we're going to redo things.
The specifics, especially on the front line, will become clearer as the impact of the virus does too. Ambulance attendants in Halifax, for example, already have orders in for more protective gear. And hospitals in Ontario will treat staff with antivirals prophylactically so that they can keep working. And some plans are being put to the test already. Toronto's Transit Commission has revised its pandemic plan half a dozen times. The main goal, keeping its 5,000 operators healthy so life all around won't be disrupted too much.
We've done exercises, we've done planning, we have masks available, we have hand sanitizer, we have gloves, and we have Tamiflu available to us through Toronto Public Health.
We're obviously concerned about how
the challenge to prepare for every scenario. Chris Broadbent is in charge of the pandemic plan for Toronto's public schools. Here he is on one of his daily calls to public health officials. They've debated everything, from monitoring absenteeism to delaying opening schools altogether. Kids, though, are hard to keep apart.
High school kids, you tell them stay home, they're going to go home, but then they're going to run to the mall.
Keeping sick kids at home, it's part of this company's plan too. This credit union will support caregivers to work from home.
We've equipped key positions with the ability to work at home via remote access and certainly the electronic medium.
The key is to keep life moving, even as the virus does too, and hope that the best laid plans won't go awry.
In short, don't panic, prepare. And that's News and Review. Don't forget to check out our website at newsandreview.cbclearning.ca. I'm Carla Robinson. Thanks for watching. In Iran, an election raises hopes for change.
It's great. It's freedom. It's democracy.
I'm looking for having change, having freedom.
But leads to disappointment and violence. On News and Review today, Iran's summer of discontent. Hello, I'm Carla Robinson. The Islamic Republic of Iran is a country of more than 70 million people, which plays a major role on the world stage because of its strategic location. The country is bordered by Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iraq, and it occupies the entire eastern shore of the oil-rich Persian Gulf. In recent years, the country has been accused of running a secret project to build a nuclear bomb. So when Iran held presidential elections this summer, it was already a big story, but nobody could have imagined how big it would become. For the last 30 years, Iran has been governed by a hardline clerical regime led by a supreme leader. The supreme leader has the final word on political or religious matters. But the next most powerful position is the one of president, and for the last 4 years, that office has been held by Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Ahmadinejad is not popular in the international community because of his threats against Israel and his strong support of Iran's nuclear program. But he is popular with many of Iran's poor, and in 2005, he was easily elected president. In this summer's election, though, he was up against a new reformist challenger, Mir Hossein Mousavi. And as the CBC's Nala Ayed found out a few days before the election, it seemed like change was in the air.
Something is happening in Iran, something so unexpected some here are daring to call it a revolution.
We feel so many hope for the future, for our children, for our little sisters and brothers.
What looked like a sure win for President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has now become a spirited contest, one that has mobilized thousands, tens of thousands into the streets. Night after night, supporters of the rival candidates prowl Tehran's boulevards, occasionally clashing but mostly trying to out-yell each other. On nights like this, they all gather near Iran's official television station, equally riveted by face-to-face encounters between the candidates. Live television debates are new to Iranian politics, and never since Ahmadinejad became president has he been so harshly criticized in public here. This political studies professor at Tehran University says it is unlike any campaign Iranians have ever seen.
It appears that an earthquake, a flood, an avalanche is coming.
Coming by way of this man, reformist candidate Mir Hossein Mousavi, an artist and before all of this, a largely forgotten former prime minister. Now his name is synonymous with change, and with the color green, in a shrewd echo of foreign tactics that has inspired a population dominated by youth.
It's more exciting for many of Iranian people, because they need a big change, a green change.
Even a role change. Mousavi's wife has been unusually prominent. Never has a would-be first lady here chosen to be in the limelight. Zahra Rahnavard is a professor and sculptor who says the country wants reform.
A great change.
She says it's time to improve Iran's image abroad and fix all that's wrong on the home front. We'll work on the economy and unemployment across the country and freedom of speech, she says. With such promises, the reformists grow bolder each day. Their events grow more ambitious. often planned through modern means like Facebook and text messages.
We receive these texts and we forward them to everyone we know.
Ahmadinejad supporters are doubtful such tactics will topple him. Maybe this is happening only in Tehran, he says, but in other places it's the other way around.
Ahmadinejad has history on his side. No Iranian president has ever lost a bid for a second term. But given the growing division between Iranians, his second term may be far more challenging than his first. Nala Ayed, CBC News, Tehran.
When voting day arrived, Iranians turned out in record numbers, including this man who came all the way from Toronto.
I thought it's the best time for me to come here and just do my part.
Some polls had suggested that Mir Hossein Mousavi, the reformist candidate, was ahead, and his supporters were excited.
It's great. It's freedom. It's democracy.
I'm looking for having change, having freedom.
But when the results came in, they were bitterly disappointed. Ahmadinejad was declared the winner by a large margin. Mousavi's supporters claimed the vote had been rigged, and clashes broke out in the streets. Those clashes continued for the next 3 days as Mousavi supporters demanded a recount. The government banned protests and riot police were sent in to break them up. But as Nala Ayed reported, the anger could not be contained.
The seething anger over President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's re-election flooded Tehran's streets. Iran has seen nothing like it since the Islamic Revolution 30 years ago. Don't be afraid, they say. We are all together.
We are here just for saying we no to the Ahmadinejad.
An election they say should have been Mir Hossein Mousavi's victory. An election they now allege was fixed. Today, he too flouted the government's decision to ban the protest. Our people are after respect, their votes and their rights, he told supporters. Since Friday's vote, the turmoil is only getting worse. Anti-riot police repeatedly clashed with Mousavi's willful supporters, who went from lighting fires to throwing stones to hurling Molotov cocktails. Today, pro-government gunmen opened fire at them. At least one person was killed. Gradually, the government also tightened control of communication, shutting down opposition websites, text messaging, restricting phone service. The Secretary General of the UN expressed his concern.
The genuine will of the people should be reflected and respected.
Ahmadinejad said yesterday the election was fair, blamed foreign meddling for the unrest. His supporters directed their wrath at the British embassy. Do not interfere, says this protester. Respect our people and their votes if you want to have relations with our country. Still, in an astonishing reversal, Iran's supreme leader agreed today to order an investigation into possible fraud. That could temporarily appease Mousavi's camp. But Iranian observers say even if the streets fall silent, what started as support for one candidate is now growing into a movement.
I think this is already gathering shape and gathering momentum. I doubt very much if that mood will simply disappear into the